students, today we will take chapter number 1 of 10th class science. Our chapter is chemical reactions and equations. In this chapter we will discuss about the chemical reactions and the equations, how we can represent your chemical reactions and the different type of reactions that we have. So let's start from the chapter. The very first thing it is there in the chapter, that is chemical reaction. So before starting with the chapter, it must be clear to us that what basically chemical reactions are. Chemical reactions are the processes in which new substances with new properties are formed. Now, in a reaction, the two reacting substances, they will react to form a new product, and the property of the new product form will be totally different from the reacting substances. So such a process is known as chemical reaction. Basically, in a chemical reaction, the recombination or rearrangement of atoms will take place. Now, the bonds which exist earlier in your reacting substances, they will get break and will form new bonds with the new rearrangement of atoms, which will lead to your products in chemical reactions. Now, in chemical reactions, we usually use two terms, that is the reactants and the products. What basically reactants are? The substances which take part in a chemical reaction. Those substances, they are known as reactants, and the new substances formed as a result of chemical reaction, they are known as products. Let's take one example. Suppose we have a magnesium ribbon. When we heat a magnesium ribbon, then this magnesium ribbon will react with oxygen from air and will produce magnesium oxide. This magnesium oxide is a white colored powder. Now, the reaction, suppose this is a reaction, so here this magnesium and oxygen, they both are your reactants because they both are participating in a chemical reaction. Now, on heating these two substances, what will get? Magnesium oxide. So, this magnesium oxide will be your product, which will form as a result of the reaction between these two reactants. The properties of magnesium oxide will be totally different from that of magnesium and oxygen. So, this was the few introduction about the chapter, that is what basically chemical reactions are. Now, if a chemical reaction will take place, so how we will come to know that whether a reaction has taken place or not? So, for that we have some characteristics of chemical reaction, with the help of which we will come to know whether a reaction has taken place or not. We have different characteristics. It may happen that only one characteristic is observed during a chemical reaction, or it may be possible that more than one characteristic is observed during a chemical reaction. So, let's study what all are the different characteristics of a chemical reaction. The very first is the evolution of a gas. This is a common characteristics. Basically, whenever a reaction takes place, so the reaction is characterized by the evolution of some gases. For example, a reaction between zinc and dilute sulfuric acid. When the reaction between zinc and dilute sulfuric acid will take place, so in this reaction it is characterized by the evolution of hydrogen gas, and this will hydrogen gas will be evolved. So by the evolution of hydrogen gas, when a hydrogen gas will evolve, then some bubbles will be observed in the test tube. From that we'll come to know that yes, if evolution of gas has taken place, obviously the reaction has completed. Second example, the reaction between sodium carbonate and dilute hydrochloric acid. In this reaction also the evolution of gas will take place, but here the gas that will evolve is your carbon dioxide. This was about the characteristic of evolution of gas. Next we have formation of precipitate. In some chemical reaction, a precipitate is formed as a result of chemical reaction. Now, what basically a precipitate is? Precipitate is a insoluble solid substance that is formed during a chemical reaction. It is insoluble. It will not get mixed up, so it can be easily observed. So the example here is reaction between potassium iodide and lead nitrate. On reaction between the potassium iodide and lead nitrate, the resultant product will be our lead iodide in which a precipitate of yellow color is formed. Next is the reaction between sulfuric acid and barium chloride. This will also result in a white precipitate of barium sulfate. Next is change in color. In few reactions on the reaction between the two reactants will observe some change in the color of reactants. For example, the reaction between citric acid and potassium permanganate solution. Basically, the color of potassium permanganate is purple. So, on reacting with citric acid, the color of potassium permanganate, it will disappear and a white color will be observed. Next example is a reaction between sulfur dioxide and acidified potassium dichromate solution. The color of potassium dichromate solution is orange. On reaction of this potassium dichromate with sulfuric dioxide, the color of potassium dichromate will change from orange to green. Next is the change in temperature. Few reactions are there that in which we can observe change in some temperature. Either the heat can be evolved or heat can be absorbed. So these we have two types of reactions: exothermic reaction and endothermic reaction. Exothermic reaction is one in which heat is evolved, and endothermic reaction is one in which heat is absorbed. The very first example is of an exothermic reaction. When you will react quicklime with water, so will form slaked lime. On the formation of slaked lime, some amount of heat is evolved. That means if you will touch the test tube, then the temperature of test tube would be risen up. So that indicates that during this reaction, some amount of heat is evolved. Second example, that is the reaction between barium hydroxide and ammonium chloride. On this reaction, heat is not evolved, rather it is absorbed. So this is an example of your endothermic reaction. When the reaction between these two reactants take place and when you will touch the test tube, so the bottom of the test tube appears to be cold. So it indicates that here some amount of heat is absorbed. So this was about the change in temperature, and the last one is change in state. When reaction will take place, so it may happen that the state of reactants may get changed. For example, the combustion reaction of candle wicks. When this candle wicks is burned, so what will be produced? Water and carbon dioxide. This wicks is a solid, and the formation of water and carbon dioxide, water is a liquid and carbon dioxide is a gas. So in this combustion reaction, the state of a wicks has changed. Wicks was solid and the products formed are here water and carbon dioxide, which are liquid and in gaseous state. Now next is chemical equations. What basically chemical equations are? Chemical equations are the method of representing chemical reactions with the help of symbols and formulae. That means it is nothing, just a notation to represent your chemical reactions by the use of some symbols or the formulas. This will help you in writing these chemical equations. This will help you in writing chemical reactions. Let's take one example. For example, the reaction between zinc and sulfuric acid, it will lead to the formation of zinc sulfate and hydrogen. Now, how we can represent this chemical reaction with the help of chemical equations? Now here what I have stated, that in chemical equations we will use symbols and formula to represent your chemical reactions. Now we know that the formula for symbol for zinc is Zn. Formula for sulfuric acid is H2SO4. Then zinc sulfate is ZnSO4 and hydrogen is H2. Now here the zinc and H2SO4, they are your reactants, and these are your products. This arrow, it indicates the direction in which the chemical reaction takes place. This will basically determine the direction of chemical reaction. It indicates that these two reacting substances, they will react chemically to produce these two products. So it basically indicates the direction of reaction. Next, we can have two types of chemical equations. One is your balanced chemical equation and the other one is your unbalanced chemical equation. First of all, let's talk about balanced chemical equation. It is a type of equation which has an equal number of atoms of different elements in the reactants and products. That means in case of balanced chemical equations, the number of atoms of the reacting substances and the number of atoms at the side of the products, they will be same. For example, in the same reaction, let's consider these two are your reactants, these two are your products. So here this zinc, it has one number of atom at the reactant side and at the product side also one number of atoms. Next is hydrogen, it is having two number of atoms at the reactant side and 2 atoms at the product side, again 2. Then sulfur, it is having 1 atom at the reactant side and 1 at the product side. And last one, oxygen, it has 4 number of atoms at the reactant side and same 4 at the product side. So here the number of atoms of all these 4 substances at the reactant side and at the product side, they are same. So we can say that this equation is balanced. Next is your unbalanced chemical equation. If an equation has unequal number of atoms of one or more elements in the reactants and products, then the chemical equation is said to be unbalanced. Let's consider one example. This is the reaction between hydrogen and oxygen to give water. Now in this reaction, the number of atoms of hydrogen at the reactant side are 2 and the number of hydrogen atoms at the product side are also 2. So we can say that this thing is balanced. Let's talk about oxygen. Here the number of atoms of oxygen are 2 and here the number of atoms are 1. So we can say that here the 2 atoms of oxygen are there and here 1 atom. So number of atoms, they are not equal. So we will say that this equation is an example of your unbalanced chemical equation. In such a case, we need to balance this equation. So let's study that how we can balance the chemical equation. Now let's study that how we can balance chemical equation. The one example that we have taken, in case of unbalanced chemical equation, that is hydrogen plus oxygen will result in water. This equation was unbalanced because the hydrogen atoms were balanced on both the sides, that is reactant side and product side, but the number of oxygen atoms were not balanced. We need to balance it. So here the number of oxygen atoms are 1. How we can make it equal to 2? By multiplying it with 2. So if I multiply this H2O with 2, so what I will get? 2 oxygen atoms on product side and 2 oxygen atoms on reactant side. So we can say that now oxygen will be balanced. But on multiplying it with 2, the number of hydrogen atoms at the side of product will be increased. Now here the hydrogen atoms were 2 and now it will be 4. So we can say that now if it has balance but it is not balanced. So again we need to balance it. For that reason, if we will multiply this thing by 2, so here the number of reactants atom will be equal to 4. For that reason we will multiply H2O with 2. Now again let's compare. Now hydrogen atoms are 4 at the reactant side and hydrogen atoms again are 4 at the product side. Here number of oxygen atoms are 2 at the reactant side and number of oxygen atoms at the product side are also 2. So now we can say that here the number of atoms at the reactant side and at the product side, they are same. So now this reaction is balanced. Let's take one more example. Here the methane is reacting with oxygen to produce carbon dioxide and water. So first of all, let's write down the number of atoms of carbon, hydrogen and oxygen on reactant side and on product side. Carbon here, both the sides are 1. Hydrogen here at the reactant side are 4 and at this side they are 2. Oxygen here are 2 and here we have 2 oxygen atoms with carbon dioxide and 1 with water. So total 3 we can have. So now how we can balance it? Carbon atoms though no problem, they are already balanced. We need to balance hydrogen atoms and oxygen atoms. So first of all, if we'll balance hydrogen atoms, so here too they are 4 but here they are 2. So what if I'll multiply H2O with 2? So what will get? CH4 plus O2 will give you CO2 plus 2H2O. That means here it is balanced. Now the carbon atoms on reactant and product side are 1. Hydrogen atoms here are 4 and here are also 4. Now oxygen atoms here are 2 and in this side 2 here and 2 here. Total we have 4 oxygen atoms at the product side. Now carbon is balanced, hydrogen is balanced. Now we need to balance your oxygen also. For that reason again we will multiply oxygen with 2. So what will get? CH4 plus 2O2 will result in CO2 plus 2H2O. So now here the oxygen atoms are also 4. Now we can say that this reaction is also balanced. Now we have studied that how we can represent equation. Now there are number of methods with the help of which we can make your equations to be more informative. That means more number of information could be given in your chemical equations. Now how we can give? By indicating the physical state of the reactants and the products. By using this we can mention whether the reactants or products, they are in liquid state, they are in solid state, they are in gaseous state, or they are the aqueous solutions. Then by indicating heat changes, we have studied that equations can be of endothermic, it can be of exothermic type. That means heat could be evolved or it could be absorbed. The heat changes or the energy changes also we can indicate by writing the heat either along the reactant side or along the product side. Next is by indicating condition under which reaction takes place. We can mention the condition. For example, if some atmospheric conditions are taken place, that means some reactions we conduct under low atmospheric pressure, under high atmospheric pressure, in the presence of some catalyst. So that we can write. So by using these 3 methods, we can make the chemical equations to be more informative. Let's consider a few examples. The very first reaction is of a photosynthesis. Now we all know that photosynthesis, for the reaction of photosynthesis to take place, sunlight and chlorophyll, they are necessary. So here I have indicated 6 carbon dioxide. In bracket I have mentioned the state of it as using first one. That it is in gaseous state, water is in liquid state, this glucose is in aqueous state, and then oxygen again in gaseous state. Next one, we have indicated here the condition under which the reaction take place. For this reaction to take place, we require sunlight and chlorophyll. So whichever condition is required for the reaction to take place, basically we will mention that either above this arrow or below this arrow. Next example, calcium carbonate. It is in solid state, so in bracket we basically mention the physical state of the reactants or the products plus heat. This reaction absorbs heat. That's why heat is mentioned on the reactant side. And this third reaction, it is basically your exothermic reaction in which heat is evolved. That's why I have written heat on the product side. So these are some ways with the help of which we can make your reactions or equations to be more informative. Next is types of chemical reactions. Basically, we'll have 5 types of chemical reactions: combination reaction, decomposition reaction, displacement reaction, double displacement reaction, and last one is redox reaction. So let's take first of all combination reaction. Combination reaction is a reaction in which two or more substances, they will combine to form a single substance or single product. That means at the reactant side we can have two or we can have three substances, but on the product side we'll have only one. For example, if A and B, they are combining together, so obviously AB will be formed. So the example of combination reactions are, first one is of magnesium when it reacts with oxygen, so it will give you magnesium oxide. That means two substances are there at the reactant side and one product is formed. They will combine together to form a single product. Another example is the formation of water. When hydrogen and oxygen, they will react to produce water. So both these are the example of your combination reaction, where two substances, they will react to form a single product. Next is decomposition reaction. Decomposition reaction is a type of reaction in which a compound splits up or decomposes into two or more simpler substances. That means in such type of reaction, one compound gets decomposed or split up into its different components as a product. For example, the reaction of when you will heat up calcium carbonate, so what you will get? Calcium oxide and carbon dioxide gas. That is CaCO3. This is a single compound. It results into two substances here, two simpler substances. So one is there at the reactant side and two or more can be there on the product side. In the similar way, when we'll heat up your ferrous sulfate solution, when you will heat up ferrous sulfate, so what you'll get? Ferric oxide and sulfur dioxide and sulfur trioxide. Here two products are formed, here three products are formed. One more thing, decomposition reactions are always endothermic reactions. These type of reactions always require heat to get decomposed or to get split up into its simpler substances. So these are always of endothermic type. Next is third type of reaction is displacement reaction. Displacement reaction are the reaction in which one element takes the place of another element in a compound. That means in displacement reaction, a highly reactive substance will replace the lesser reactive substance from its compound. For example, the reaction of copper sulfate and zinc, this will result in zinc sulfate and copper. Here copper sulfate, zinc being more reactive than copper. In reactivity series, zinc is more reactive than copper, hence zinc will replace copper from its solution and will form zinc sulfate solution and copper is left. In the similar way, copper chloride plus lead. The reaction of copper chloride and lead is again an example of displacement reaction. Here lead being more reactive will replace copper from its solution and will form lead chloride. The fourth type of reaction is double displacement reaction. In this, two compounds react by an exchange of ions. Here the only one, that is a highly reactive substance, will replacing the lesser one, but here the mutual exchange of ions will take place. If two reactants are there, so they will mutually exchange their ions and new products will be formed. For example, silver nitrate when it reacts with sodium chloride. So the new product formed here is silver chloride and sodium nitrate. That means they are exchanging their ions together, hence forming two new compounds. Next is barium chloride when reacts with sodium sulfate. So the resultant product will be barium sulfate and sodium chloride. They are exchanging their ions. So in this though, only one exchange will take place and here mutual exchange of ions will take place. Now, last type of chemical reaction is a redox reaction. Basically, redox reactions are oxidation and reduction reactions. Basically, the oxidation and reduction reactions, they occur simultaneously. They will occur together. That's why they will be presented with a common name, that is redox reaction. It is clear from the name redox. The first three letters red, they will represent reduction reaction, and last two letters they will represent oxidation reaction. So for this we need to study that what basically oxidation reaction are and what basically the reduction reactions are. First one, oxidation, a reaction in which either the addition of oxygen will take place or the removal of hydrogen will take place. It can be any one of two. Either the addition of oxygen is taking place or the removal of hydrogen is taking place, then such type of reaction is your oxidation reaction. Next is reduction reaction. It is the addition of hydrogen or the removal of oxygen. That means either the addition of hydrogen is taking place or the removal of oxygen is taking place, then such type of reaction will be reduction reaction. Both these processes, they will occur simultaneously. Then we will use two terms here, oxidizing agent and reducing agent. Oxidizing agent are the substances which get reduced itself. These are the substance which is getting reduced in a reaction. That substance will be your oxidizing agent. And the substance which is getting oxidized itself will act as a reducing agent. Let's study this with the help of an example. The very first example, let's suppose copper oxide and hydrogen. Then they are reacting, then that will lead to copper and water. Now here what we have studied, that addition of oxygen or the removal of hydrogen. From this copper, oxygen is being removed. Oxygen was present at the reactant side but is absent at the product side. So obviously from here oxygen is being removed, and we know that the removal of oxygen is reduction. So this will be the reduction process. Second one, hydrogen. Here no oxygen was present, but here oxygen is being added to it. So the addition of oxygen is your oxidation. So here oxidation will take place and here reduction will take place. Now the substance which get reduced itself will act as oxidizing agent. This is getting reduced, hence it will be your oxidizing agent. It is getting oxidized and it will be your reducing agent. One more example. Here your hydrogen sulfide plus chlorine, they are resulting in sulfur and hydrogen chloride. Now here hydrogen is being removed. Here H2S was there, but here only S is present. That means hydrogen is removed from it, and removal of hydrogen is your oxidation. Next one, here chlorine was alone, but here hydrogen is added to chlorine. That means the addition of hydrogen will be your reduction. So this will reduction, this will be oxidation. Now what I have stated, the substance which get oxidized, now it is getting oxidized, hence it will be reducing agent. It is getting reduced, hence it will be your oxidizing agent. Now this was about your redox reactions. Next is effects of oxidation reactions in everyday life. The very first effect that we'll study here is corrosion. This is the most common effect that we all come across. What basically a corrosion is? Corrosion is the process in which metals are eaten up gradually by the action of air, moisture or chemicals on their surface. Sometimes it happens that because of the effect of air or the moisture or the chemicals, basically acids, they will just spoil, because of them the metal surface will get eaten up. So this process is basically your corrosion. The example of corrosion that we all come across is rusting of iron. This is the most common example of your corrosion. And this reaction, that is 4 iron plus 3O2 plus 2xH2O. Here X represents the number of water molecules. In the process of rusting of iron, the number of water molecules, they are not fixed. They can vary depending on different conditions. So this is the process of corrosion. There are a number of methods with the help of which we can try to reduce the effect of corrosion on the surface of metals. This process we'll study in detail in chapter number 3. Next is rancidity. Rancidity is a condition produced by the aerial oxidation of fats and oil in food marked by unpleasant smell and taste. Sometimes what happens that if we'll store the food containing oil and fat for large time, that is for longer period of time, then some unpleasant smell or taste changes will be observed in that food. This is because of the process of rancidity. In the process of rancidity, the oxygen from the air that will get combined with the oil and fat in your food, resulting in the products which will have unpleasant smell and taste. This is the process of rancidity, because of which the food which gets rancid. Rancid means have some unpleasant smell or taste. We can have different methods with the help of which we can prevent the process of rancidity. First one is by adding antioxidants to the food. These antioxidants are basically your reducing agents, because of which the fat and oil which are present in the food, they will not be able to react with the oxygen. Hence, they will prevent the food. Basically, the two antioxidants that we will use to preserve our food is BHA and BHT, that is butyl hydroxyanisole and butylated hydroxytoluene. Next method is packaging food in nitrogen gas. What we can do that we can pack the food which contains fat and oil in packets which will have nitrogen gas, or it may have helium gas also sometimes, but basically we are using nitrogen gas. For example, the potato chips that we purchase from market. So those potato chips are basically filled with your nitrogen gas to provide rancidity of food. Next one is refrigeration. We can keep the fat and oil containing food in refrigerator so that the process of rancidity will get slowed down. And last one, by using airtight containers. If we are storing such type of food in airtight containers, so in airtight containers oxygen is not there in sufficient amount, hence that food will not react with the oxygen to prevent rancidity of food. These basically are some methods with the help of which we can prevent rancidity of food. Thank you.